Welcome to the Sutherland Report. Thank you so much for joining me once again. And I am excited because I have a dear friend of mine, who will be joining us in a couple of seconds. I will bring on Carl Teichrib. I've managed to pin him down. He has been one of the busiest people that I know since the beginning of the year. And we are going to discuss where he has just come from, what he has been investigating, and how he feels after recovering from another very interesting experience. Carl, fantastic to see you, my dear friend. The last time I saw you was at the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago, where we had an absolute blast, and I then learnt a heck of a lot. And I'm very grateful for you inviting me. So,
Well,
how are you, my friend?
I'm tired, but I'm okay. I'm doing well. I've been on the road. I think this is day 11 of being on the road. So I'm in a hotel room right now, and just another marathon run, right? That's how it goes. But yeah, and I'm glad, Mark, that you brought up the Parliament of World Religions. I mean, together we had this incredible experience
Hmm.
at the Parliament, and in your words, going into the Death Star.
Yeah.
Where politics and religion comes together at a global level. So,
I'll just bring up the pamphlet just to prove it. Here it is, and just to show everyone and say this is how thick this book is, with all the different seminars of rather frightening stuff that these people talk about. And the reason why I am showing that because I believe that my dear friend Carl Teichrib, and I'm just going to reach for his book. This is alive. This is live. You know, where he has spent time. It was published in 2016, writing this, and I cannot recommend this enough. And I personally have my own signed copy. We see the logo, but Carl, you have been since since January. You have been so busy. You've been traveling about all over the place, and you've been on the road. Now, as a disclosure comment, you and I spoke. I think maybe 2 days ago about where you've been. So I just want to give you the floor. I want you to talk about the research that you've just undertaken and where you've been, and just lead the way, sir.
yeah, for sure. Um, and you're right. It has been a really busy the last few months in terms of research trips, research, kind of trying to figure out where things are at. Back in January, I was at an academic meeting, academic conference on the past, present, and future of NATO. And then just a month ago now, I was in Minneapolis at a gathering of roughly 1,000 witches and Wiccans. The event was called Paganicon, and Paganicon is an annual convergence of the pagan community in the Twin Cities, U.S. Midwest region. Just trying to understand how those movements are changing and how they're intersecting with society and culture. And then this last week, when we had the eclipse, I was in Texas for the Texas Eclipse Festival, which is part of what's called transformational culture. It's a transformational festival. It is designed as a container to be able to explore spirituality, knowledge, to be able to come together in community, and in this case, of course, using the eclipse as the epicenter for the event. That, of course, is the reason for it. Your audience may not have heard of transformational culture. It is a global phenomena. They may have heard of events like Burning Man, and I go to Burning Man, and Lord willing, I'll be getting my ticket and heading back to the desert this year once again. And Burning Man is kind of the mothership of transformational culture, where people come together and experience. It's considered to be a cult of experience. That's how internally it's discussed. We recognize it that way. This is not a religion. This is secular, yet it embeds so much mythology, spirituality, the search for the higher self. It embeds so much in terms of kind of a veneration of the earth. All these elements come into play. And you see that wherever you go in terms of exploring transformational culture. And there's a sub movement within that, and that is a group that chases the eclipse. And this is not the first eclipse festival. There was a large one that happened in 2017 in Oregon, right before Burning Man. And I understand that these events have happened in other parts of the world too. So people will travel, and I talk to people. I talked to people this last weekend who have traveled around the world chasing the eclipse, coming together as a community, engaging in ceremony, because there is a spiritual component to this. And so it is when I say this, I'm not saying this in a figurative sense. I'm meaning this literally. They're venerating the sun. And so on Monday we had a little bit of a shakeup. We had storms coming with apparently large hail and possible tornadoes, and the organizers and the state officials didn't want to have to deal with a crisis event at the festival. So Monday, all of a sudden, there's 50,000 people at this event. Okay, Mark, this is not small. This is huge. So 50,000 people at this event are told now, you need to leave now.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh wow, everybody was tearing down tents and pulling camp, and then we had instant gridlock, and I mean instant gridlock, as we have only one road, and it's a single lane road, um, coming in and out, and we're screwed. So we sat there in this gridlock for hours and hours, and ironically, we watched the eclipse because we couldn't move. And so here we are. We're supposed to leave the event, but there's not a snowball's chance that's going to happen. They finally had to open up a back route out of the festival area, and it was held on a private ranch, a large private ranch. And then that kind of took some of the pressure off the flow of the traffic leaving. Nevertheless, I mean, it was a pretty interesting, pretty crazy 4 days. As a transformational event, it incorporates a lot of elements. It incorporates ceremony. It incorporates spirituality, the search for the higher self, the search for meaning and purpose. There are workshops. There were workshops happening all throughout the event. We had a staging area called Texas On Chain, where we had people involved in the cryptocurrency community, in blockchain, coming and talking about where that is shifting, how that tech is changing, and how you can get on board with certain projects, which was really cool because you're able to now get kind of a bit of an inside view of some of the challenges that even, let's say, developers face. And then we had a space stage. The space stage had ceremonies and musical performances. There was an awards ceremony, and we had a lot of people coming from the private space industry because this is Texas, and of course, it's Elon Musk's territory. It's the Space Coast, and so we had a number of people involved from SpaceX, private entrepreneurs, people involved in the media side of SpaceX, and people who have been in space, people who have paid whopping amounts of money to take the first bus trip around the moon. That is in the works. There is a space tourist industry that is burgeoning, and it is serious. They very likely will be able to actually have this in motion in the next few years coming up, as people will be taking almost like a bus. It's a rocket ship. Here you go, 100 people fit in this great big huge ship, and blast off and go around the moon, land, and yeah, you can say I've been to space. And people pre-purchased these packages, and so we had people. In fact, I'm not sure if it's an organization or if it's a kind of like a community. It's called Dear Moon, as in, Dear John or whatever, Dear Moon. And so a lot of people from Dear Moon were there talking about just how quickly the technology is coming together to make this happen. We had a consciousness stage where we had the leading lights of the psychedelic community, like people like Rick Doblin from MAPS, and legal experts, visionary speakers talking to us about the state of affairs globally regarding psychedelics. We had one of the main attorneys who helped to open up psychedelic legalization in Oregon, California, now working with other states to bring psychedelics legally online in different parts of the US, working both with the medical community and with the political community, because as it was explained to us, it is coming through the medical side first. That is the legitimizing of it. That's the justification of bringing psychedelics on board, but it's not meant to stay there. In fact, they're very open about that. Very open about the fact. Yes.
Carl, sorry, and we
Yes.
are, when you're talking about psychedelics, let's just clarify this. We're talking drugs, aren't we? We're
Yes.
talking,
Yes. We're talking LSD, psilocybin, DMT, ketamine, this type of thing. Yeah. And
wow.
of course, you and I, we were at the workshop at the Parliament of World Religions with Richard Rohr, the Christian mystic,
Yeah.
along with other seminary professors, talking about how they're bringing psychedelics into the Christian community, putting it through, basically trying to bring it into seminaries, bringing it into chaplaincy services, and adding this on as a component of spirituality. And then,
Well, I
yeah,
won't forget. I have to say, sorry, I won't forget that
yeah,
seminar, and you know that I won't forget that seminar because I just walked out and just went struth, you know. And the other thing is basically saying that if this man was in front of my children and they were younger, he wouldn't be standing up. I
I
mean,
know.
this is outrageous. This is outrageous.
Oh, I
So
remember you were fuming coming out of
yeah,
there. You were like,
yeah, I was.
I know.
I was.
I
I
remember
think.
we were looking at each other when it was done, and you were just like, you was just written all over you.
But I think, but well, and I don't apologize for that
No,
reaction
no,
at all
don't.
because here is the first of many questions, and I don't want us to. I want us to go back to the whole SpaceX thing and the fact that you were then visited that particular seminar because it's very interesting what you were saying about the payloads and all this kind of thing. This
Mm-hmm.
is real. This is what's happening, Carl.
Right.
I don't say I'm not being sarcastic in saying this. You were there with another colleague, which is fantastic. But this is in Texas, which I know very well. So, you know, where are other Christians at this event praying, doing research? I mean, we've got to raise this because at the Parliament of World Religions, it's not about us patting ourselves on the shoulder going, oh, wasn't this fantastic? There were 11 of us there, and we were, you know, and those people I'm very honored to call friends now. We were there, had an incredible experience, but that's 11 people, and the America's got a population of legally of 320 million. Where was the church at this event?
Sleeping.
Right, right,
Sleeping, having a big snooze.
right.
That's what the church has been doing. I mean, we're really good at sleeping at this point. We're okay. Let me back it up a bit. We're really good at being online. No, we're not even really good at that. That's what we spend our time with. We spend our time being jerks online. That's what we do.
Wow.
That's
Could
what we
you,
do.
right? Could we
And I'm actually
let?
serious about that.
Yeah,
You know, it ticks me off.
I
Like,
know it does, and I'm not just saying this because you are a dear friend, and I'm honoured to know you, but I just feel that, and I'll just put it out there. You know, you've been doing this for 35 years. You're looking very good for your age, I have to say, but you've been doing this for 35 years, even though you might feel I'm absolutely shattered, but you are, and I
yeah,
do feel that you are our principal researcher at this. I mean, when you were at the beginning, when you've just said, I've just been to a NATO meeting talking about, you know, the future, the history of NATO, where's it going? And then look at what is in the news right now. Because if Donald Trump, for argument's sake, comes back as president, we know that he said about a number of things about NATO. There may be 35 members, but only 18 of them are financially contributing. And this is the whole point that he's been making, but not but putting that aside, it's about the fact that you will go there where other Christians won't go. And I
Yes.
know that when I went to the Parliament of World Religions, it changed my life. And the reason why it changed my life is because of this, because I met, it was NGO meeting the occult, meeting stop oil nutbags, right? It really was. And I just say this anecdote, and then I want to hand back to you with where you've been. Remember when we were sitting in a seminar, just illustrate something to the audience. We were sitting in a seminar, and these people, we were opposite Al Gore's daughter, Karine, where she's going on about. I think you were there, unless I
Yeah,
was
I was with
there.
you.
You were there, of course you
Yep.
were, because of what I was going to say. And there she was going, well, my seminary or whatever, we're defunded from oil. And I'm going, you stupid piece of work. And they're all coming out with this. And then you turn around and tap me on the shoulder because this woman came in to
Yep.
speak to the person who was chairing the seminar. And you said that's one of the most influential witches in North America. And I
Yep.
went, excuse me? And you illustrated just in that relationship where all these things merge. And I think this is what you were talking about, where you've just been, when you've been to Burning Man. Remember the massive mud thing that happened there to get out. It all seems familiar. Parliament of World Religions wasn't over organized that well at certain times either.
Nope.
However, so going back, and I am so grateful that you do go, even though when you go, when others go to these events, it seems as though people are very critical of us, of what's going on. Because do you think that this is an exaggerating statement in saying that by going to the event that you've just been, you are looking at the people that are building the beast system, whether they know that they are building it or not? What are your comments?
Yeah, you're right. Of course, that's exactly what we're doing. We're building it from a worldview perspective, but we're also building the infrastructure. We're building the political infrastructure.
Right.
We're building the religious infrastructure. We're building the technological infrastructure. Uh, and no, they don't recognize that. They don't recognize it at all. They see it as a grand, beautiful program moving forward. And it's not to say that they all get along, because they don't. I've encountered lots of hiccups, the clash of egos, the clash of agendas, even though they are all, in a sense, working from that worldview perspective towards a similar goal. And they also recognize that there's dangers and potential real serious implications of what they're doing. They're not hiding that. And yet at the same time, it's almost like there's a compulsion. You have to move forward, because if you don't, somebody else will, and you're going to lose out. For an example, some of the discussions we had at the on-chain staging area was on the dangers of AI, and how AI will rapidly and radically transform the battlefield, and how we will be seeing, and we already are seeing, the combination of AI with drone warfare, and how AI will be the next weapon of mass destruction, and how we will even see non-state actors engaging in a form of AI warfare. And what this is going to look like, we are not really sure yet, but the writing's on the wall that AI itself has the potential to be not just disruptive in terms of economies or industries, but it is absolutely has that potential to be disruptive on the geopolitical sphere, and the even the battleground itself. So, I mean, there were some serious discussions. We're not talking about conversations that are just like, oh, how are you doing today? Isn't the weather fine? God loves you. Bye. You know? No, we're talking
So,
serious conversations. You know? I mean, I know you're laughing, Mark, because you get it. You get it.
mm,
But so you said that I had brought a friend with. Yes, I was very fortunate. A really wonderful, wonderful man. He had reached out to me and said, "Hey, this is in my backyard." And he had heard a presentation I'd given at a Christian event where I had mentioned this upcoming festival. And somebody, sorry, Mark, somebody needed to be there. And he had heard me speak there. Uh, and so he reached out and he said, "Can I join you?" I said, "Sure. I don't know who you are, but sure, I'm going to take a risk. Let's do this." Because he seemed genuine. And if you're willing to go and put yourself out like that, I'm going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some conversations about just how serious this really is. And he came. Now, he has been around the world. He's traveled the world. He's worked with a major missions organization, a global missions organization. He has worked in risk management. Uh, he's no slouch. The guy knows his stuff. He's been involved in the past in the military. He's a brilliant man. Very analytical, which was excellent. You need to have that kind of mindset going in. You have to be able to be analytical, yet at the same time be willing to have empathy, be willing to have compassion. You're not going in to judge in terms of where, how do I say this, condemning. We're condemned already. We're condemned absolutely already. And Christ makes that very, very clear. In fact, we all know John 3:16, but we forget John 3:17, which is when Christ is saying, I didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it, because the world's already condemned. So you have to go in with those kinds of attitudes, those kinds of approaches, that you're talking with people who have lives, who have pain, who are looking for healing, who are looking for something, who are trying to find themselves. It can be a deeply emotional place. And so he came with me, and I give him credit. He called me up. We had a conversation. He says, I'm going to try to get my church on board. I'm going to try to get local churches on board. And he said, can you give me some suggestions as to what our church can do? And so I offered him like 4 or 5 different suggestions, everything from, hey, get on the side of the highway, hand out bottles of water, hand out food, get involved, look for people broken down on the road, look for stragglers, because at Burning Man, we have people doing that. Like my friend Bob Worley last year was doing exactly that and has done that in the past. We have people both inside and outside. So do things like this. And there's other opportunities, lots and lots of opportunities. In other words, get your hands dirty, get out there, quit sitting on your hands. So he brought that to his church, and he brought it to, I believe, a couple of other churches. And the response was, no, not interested. Number one, I think it was too radical, too new. They hadn't even wrestled through what this event was. They'd heard about this event because, of course, it's basically in the backyard, so to speak. But no, there was no positive response at all. And so he said, can I come in to the festival with you and see what it's like? Absolutely. So he came in. The first day, Mark, he was blown away. Now, again, he has had a life of cross-cultural experiences. He's not a slouch at this. But he said to me a number of times on Friday, and especially as Friday wound up, as it was wrapping up, he was like, this is huge. And he was so blown away. He was so blown away. He was like, he said he didn't expect it to be this serious, that the scope was this vast. He didn't expect it to be this organized, this energized, because it is. It's a massively energized movement. And so he admitted he was shook up. By Friday evening, he was very shook up. And then he's coming into it from a man who's literally been around the world, intersecting with all kinds of cultures, and being in some very awkward and very intense places. And so he was shook up, which I thought was very interesting because, I mean, honestly, Mark, I've been down the road a bunch of times. It's not my first rodeo. I'm not shook up at all. But again, I've also had that I've done that historical research. I've worked through to understand, okay, how are people thinking? How has this culturally come into being? What is the backstory? Who are the players? How is it organized? What are the goals? You know, where you work through all of that. You work through its history. You work through all the other subtexts that come into that history, so that you're not just simply landing on one spot. You're wanting to land in all of it. So I've done all that. I did all that before I ever stepped into my first transformational event. And then I started doing surveys. My first transformational event I was doing surveys, which was for myself. I'm a bit of an introvert. I feel way better being on a motorcycle all by myself, or being out in the bush with a chainsaw, than hanging out with great crowds of people. Yeah, that's just how I'm wired. So doing surveys,
Can I just say, from a safety point of view, he's
yes.
not riding his bike with a chainsaw at the same time. I just want to clarify that. I don't advise any of the viewers to do that. But I
Oh
know,
yeah.
I know you.
I have to try something. No, that's okay. But all of that said, so I've come into it with a degree of knowledge, and he didn't. He didn't. He hadn't even had a chance to read chapter 14 in my book, which lays out this culture. He didn't have that opportunity, and so he stepped into it cold, and it blew him away. And so he was overwhelmed by Friday. But by Saturday, he was working through this now analytically. The emotion of it was already gone. It wasn't gone, but the emotion of it, he was over that wave, over that tsunami. And so now he was working through it analytically. By Sunday, he's now starting to think through, all right, from the perspective of responding to this as a Christian community, what do we have to do? What direction do we take? How do we bring this conversation into the Christian sphere? So I give him credit; he was really working through it. We did have one encounter with another couple of Christians, which I was surprised about. We were going to the Metadome, so the Metasphere, whatever you want to call it, it was the Metadome. So in Las Vegas, is this great big. It's a new building. It's a huge dome structure, and you go inside, and the whole ceiling, the whole dome is built as this massive over sensory multimedia experience. You're surrounded by the media. You're surrounded in what is basically a huge curved theatrical screen. And so the same company had set it up at the Texas Eclipse. And we were able to go in and watch some pretty interesting interactive media presentations. But we were also going in to watch and listen to the co-founder of Nurolink, Elon Musk's right-hand man. I can't remember the gentleman's name offhand, and Elon Musk's his top neurosurgeon, who is developing the brain-computer interfacing. And we were given some highlights as to where that's going. My goodness, Mark, some radical technologies are coming online. But as we're waiting to get into the Metadome, my friend is talking to a couple of people who look very much like my friend. My friend came in he's pretty straight laced, he's got pants on, he's got a shirt on. He looks like he's just a nice guy coming off the street. He's got a hat and a backpack. And I'm there. I don't wear my shirt too much. It's warm. It's Texas. I'm from Canada. When I left Canada, I had snow on the ground. Now I've got sunburn. I'm in sunburn territory. I want some vitamin D, some real vitamin D. And I already know how to kind of just fit in. And so I fit in. I just fit in. I don't, and so my friend is interacting with these people who look like himself. They've got, the shirt and the collar, the whole bit. They don't fit in. They're not, it's obvious this is not their territory. And so my friend came up alongside them having conversations. Here was 3 or 4 Christian guys. And they had come in. One of them said that they were coming to try to have some conversations and to learn and to maybe spread the gospel. Awesome. That's cool.
Brilliant.
I hope they had good conversations, and I hope the conversations that they had carried a certain degree of empathy and a certain degree of compassion. One of the big concerns that we have when we intersect with the Burning Man culture and some of these adjacent sub-movements, and my friend Bob Worley had made this very clear, he's my partner at Burning Man, we don't want Christians showing up with bullhorns and picket signs and demonstrating and reinforcing the negative stereotype that they already have of Christianity. We want to come as humans to humans. That's what we want to be. That's really what we want to be. So we're hoping that that's likewise the case here. What was interesting, though, was one of the people actually was friends with the neuroscientist from Elon Musk's Neuralink, and so so we were really surprised that there was this little, all of a sudden, this little connection that was happening. One of the takeaways my friend had, and it formed a good conversation, because he realized that we can't communicate this to the church. And we can't communicate it to the church because the church is incapable of understanding what's taking place. We can't communicate it because the church is intellectually already that far behind the eight ball. And I say this seriously. Um, I, I'm not even sure how to wrestle with this yet, but it's true. If I would have dragged in the majority of people I know, wonderful people, by the way, I'm going to include people from, my own personal sphere, wonderful people, dear people, smart people, and say, listen to these conversations. Listen to the serious nature of these conversations, the technical aspect of these conversations. Are we as a church ready to engage? No. We don't even know what they're talking about. We don't understand the history. We have devoided ourselves of context. All we know how to do is throw memes at each other and engage in um, inter Christian meme wars,
Right.
and that's what we do. I mean, I've had some good conversations now with a number of people in the apologetics community who's saying, you know what the apologetics community has become? YouTube kingdom building. We don't actually get out. We don't actually engage. We don't get on the streets. Now, I'm not saying that of everybody, but in a
It,
generalization, that's what
isn't
we've
that
become.
interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because YouTube kingdom building, and you're just talking about being at an event where technocracy is front and center. I'll
Yes,
just throw this out to you is a way of helping us to explain this. A few years ago, you and I were at a conference in California, 2019, and another friend of ours, David Heavener, was talking about Hollywood and talking about the sort of basis of that, and then talking about the fact that you've got Facebook, you've got other technologies that have got their headquarters there, Meta or whatever. The point I'm saying is that is what people know. They know the sort of end user, so to speak. They go, oh, I've got Facebook, I've got WhatsApp and all that. What they don't realize is and Apple or whatever, what those companies are then doing potentially way ahead of us. I mean, you and I would agree, like with other people that we know, they'd say that when they tell you they've got this technology, in fact, is 100 years in advance, it's so to speak. It's so far in advance. I wonder if and this is such an important conversation because you and I have had criticism because of the events that we've attended. People go, why do you go there? Well, we want Hosea 4, verse 6 says, my people are destroyed through lack of knowledge. So Neurolink is coming on to say, and you can describe the operation that was talked about to say, right, well, if you can't walk properly, if you've got this limb, we can put this, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just going to say a very blanket statement. We'll put this Neurolink in, sort out all the nerves, and you'll be able to walk again and all this kind of thing. Or, in other words, what you're saying is, are we seriously thinking through the ramifications of this? And are you then saying that, without putting words in your mouth, that the church is not in an intellectual corner to actually handle any of this?
I agree. I agree.
Right.
Absolutely. Regarding the medical side, we were given a number of examples, incredible examples, and I think it's awesome. I think the medical side that there is a real use case for some of this technology. That's very evident with what we were seeing. And you do want people to have their mobility restored, or their ability to work, and their ability to live, to function. You want that restoration. And so there is a medical application for brain computer interfacing, for some of the advanced neurological scientists that are coming on board. At the same time, there's a double-edged sword to this, and then they themselves are acknowledging that look, we're walking into dangerous territory. That's what's interesting, Mark, about But when you engage in these kinds of events and you're hearing it from the people who are involved,
Mm,
they
mm,
are working through the ramifications. They acknowledge often we don't know where this is going to land us. And they're oftentimes doing it with an underlying worldview that you don't even realize. There's a cosmic worldview, a universalist worldview in so much of this, especially the space industry, especially SpaceX and Elon Musk. This sense of cosmic futurism, that by doing this, we're able to advance the species, we're able to advance uh, the evolution of our of mankind into something more. So there's an underlying worldview. I actually think that that's more important than the technology itself. The technology is just the outgrowth of that worldview. So it's a double-edged sword. You see great medical advances, and I want to see that. That's fantastic. If I'm in a situation where my spinal cord is broken, I hope that somehow there's a technology that can come into play and help to restore some of those functions. I do not want to begrudge anybody that. Then
I hear you. Does it? Do you
right.
think?
But then with that in mind, then we also have to
Sorry.
recognize that, there's also other implications with this. There's implications of privacy, implications of surveillance,
Right.
implications of, we don't even know sometimes what let's say some of the long-term uses of this may be that we haven't
Mm,
even yet to really wrestle with. So there's all of this in play at the same time. And that's what makes this so interesting. This is not sometimes as black and white. The Christian community wants things black and white. We want to say, that's the devil.
mm,
He's right there. When you can go, hold on. There is number one, in terms of my sin nature, I don't need the devil on my shoulder to tell me what to do. I do bad things already as it is. And if I don't
mm,
do it, it's already in my head
mm.
and it's in my heart. Nevertheless, we for the most part, as Christians, we have really done ourselves a disservice by broad brushing and not being able to work through the nuances. And I'm just saying this in general. Obviously, not everybody, um, but I've run into so much of this, even with some of my online back and forths. It's just like, oh, and I don't respond to most stuff online. I just can't. Don't have the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this is more nuanced. There's more at play than you realize.
Mm,
What is important, what is missed so often, so often, is we don't even see what the worldview is behind it. We immediately jump to some conclusion, or we'll hyper sensationalize it in some respect, saying, "Oh yeah, this is automatically satanic." Um, Sorry, let's quit. Let's actually look at it for what it is. Yes, there are worldviews. Let us examine those worldviews. Are those worldviews anti-biblical? Yes. No surprise. Why are we surprised by this, Mark? Honestly, the
mm,
whole world literally is engaged in an anti-biblical worldview.
mm, mm,
We have since Genesis chapter 3. My own heart is there too,
mm,
if we're honest about it.
mm. Carl,
So
does it? I was
let's
going to.
call it what it
Sorry.
is. Let's deal with it
Sorry
for what
to.
it is. Yeah. Anyways, I'm ranting.
No,
So
no, no. Sorry to interrupt because I'm trying to give some pointers here. Do you think so? You were saying about what they are wrestling with. So it must be if we go back to the Manhattan Project and creating the atom bomb. What have we learned from then in regard to these things that we're wrestling with? So maybe that's a helpful pointer, and
right.
also thinking of at the end of the Second World War, we've got Operation Paperclip, we've got all these Nazi scientists that went into America under that project, under Dulles, etc. And of course, some of them went into Russia, etc. In other words, and then it's looking at the Nazi ideology and then the occult links. And as our friend uh, Russ Dizdar talked about when he was with us, when he'd said, quoting the fact that one of them, I think Vernon von Braun's number two, saying, well, we're getting our technology from the other side. So, in other words, people will stay at that point and
Mm-hmm.
go, yes, but will then not engage to find out what the motivation is of these people, draw alongside them, and then have personal relationships with them, which then gives us an opportunity to tell them about Christ. I'll just be quiet and say that two guys, the couple of guys that you met, the fact that one of them knows one of Elon Musk's top people in regard to the Neurolink. To me, that's a huge thing, which talks about our faith being relational. In other
Right.
words, if we don't get out there, if we don't get beyond, even though you and I are having a conversation on a digital medium, we've got to, because you're 4,500 miles away, five and 5,000 miles away from me, and we're doing that. And then when we can meet, it's fantastic, and we do that. This sorry, I'm rambling now, but I'm just saying that this is why it's relational. And then you go back to the guy that went with you, and all credit to him, all
Oh yeah.
credit for going with you. And I then know the isolation of that, because he's way outside, and then suddenly his church, the subculture, will not want to engage.
Yep.
But I'll end by saying this: the fact that you are then drawing alongside people, if you do not do that and put yourself in a position to tell others about Jesus, getting to know people and trust them, then who else is going to do it? And
Exactly.
the church is not doing it. In other words, it's this whole definition of being a missionary, and people have got to not, but they've got to redefine it to turn around and say going to these events is mission work. That's
Mhm.
where we're called to be. I think through you, more and more, I'm learning to cope with that and think, no, because of my media experience, that's where I want to engage. Carl,
Yes.
I'll be quiet. It's trying to help us unpack it to then reach people, to encourage them to engage.
Yeah, and going back to even the technological side, there's layering to this. There's a lot of
Mm,
layering. I mean, my goodness, if you use Apple computers, and I use Apple right now,
mm,
I'm on a Windows-based Microsoft system. But if I look at my Apple, I know that Steve Jobs was inspired in part by his psychedelic experiences to produce the Apple computer.
mm,
Um, there is this overlapping of the spirituality with the technical, with between the worldview and the actual end use. There's all kinds of layerings and interactions with this. I'm not I don't have my eyes closed to that. And I think that we sometimes will end up getting lost as Christians in just one side, and we're not able then to engage the people, because well, I'll go back to just what we because of what I see on social media. We're really, really good at arguing over minute points, and then engaging in meme wars, literally to the choir, and not being able to step outside to get beyond our own little bubble and have conversations in the real world. Part of this is fear. Okay, so the eclipse. I've got to go here. I've got to go here because it ticks me off. You saw it. I saw it. All the garbage, and I'm going to call it that, all the garbage, all the Christian superstition that came out on social media. Oh, the eclipse. It's going to intersect with the eclipse from 2017.
mm.
This is going to open a portal up. This is the rapture is going to happen now. This is a mark of God's judgment. This is and just went on and on. Demons are being unlocked by this event, and just all kinds of stuff. And I'm going, we've had eclipses all around the world. We've had eclipses crisscross all over the world. Southeast Asia has had what's called a swarm, where because of the timing, the place, the point of referencing, it was crisscrossed multiple times. Nobody sent a meme out. Nobody sent a reinforcing fear-based YouTube video on this being a portal into something. Nobody. I mean, oh my goodness. And it's all America, because this is over America. This is the America's great eclipse. Get over yourselves, people. Please. You're engaging in superstition, flat out. This is superstition. You've no basis outside of your speculation. That's all it is. Flat out speculation. Oh, this is going to cross through all these towns named this. all these towns named Nineveh, or you could have said, I mean, I crisscross America. I love Americans and I love America. But there's a limitation to the names of American towns. It seems every town, or pardon me, every state has a town named Springfield, or a town named Nineveh, or a town named Independence. Um, every town and city has a street called Washington Street, or Jefferson Street, or Independence Street. Every bridge or monument is named after some American hero or historical personality. And then all of a sudden we see a ship hitting a bridge, which is there's a massive technical explanation for it. This was not again. People immediately became armchair experts on maritime navigation and maritime infrastructure. Really interesting to see how that happens. And hits a bridge named after the individual who wrote the American anthem. See, we immediately go to correlation equaling causation. It's not. Of course, he hit a bridge named after an American personality, American hero. All of your bridges seem to be named after an American personality or American hero. I mean, that's just the culture. I'm not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. It just is. But immediately, I'm watching on social media this explosion just of, see, look at. No, quit. You're speculating. And not only are you speculating, you're fear mongering. That's what you're engaging in. You're fear mongering. And you saw the post I did, speaking of social media, the post I did where I listed my favorite verses, and they were all my made up verses about fear not God, only man and nature. Book of the Eclipse, chapter 1, verse 1, and all the list that I did there, because I was just sick and tired of people being so fearful. I mean, I literally was watching some of the conversations of people going, "I'm planning not to step outside today."
Wow.
Serious? Are you serious? I mean, please. Why are we ineffective? That's why we're ineffective.
I mean, I won't name the ministry, but there is a ministry offline. We'll have a conversation, and where their followers, they have driven into a fearful state where these people don't go outside because of what this person has been teaching for a long period of time. I am not saying that the stuff is not real. I'm not saying that, but just carry on with your lives to the best of your ability and get out there and have conversation and tell people about Jesus and interact.
Well, one of my new favorite Bible verses is, "They will know us by our fear."
Wow. Wow. A good adaptation. But yeah, I mean, how many, it's like, it's fear not. I mean, in regard to the bridge, I do find it interesting. You and I, we do understand, that whole thing of Genesis 12, where it talks about, if you bless my people, I will bless you. If you curse my people, I will curse you. There is a reality in that.
Right.
And it's stepping back and listening, especially on the geopolitical level, when presidents make decisions and then they wonder why their houses are being flooded. In regard to Israel, I'll just say it.
Right.
There is a Bill Koenig has written a very, very interesting book.
Yes, I know Bill.
Tracking all, yeah, absolutely. I know you do. Tracking all this is very, very interesting. And sort of put that out there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this whole lesson of stepping back and weighing everything up, just bringing that before God and weighing everything up. What are we being shown here?
And I think the other big takeaway with this is quit allowing this to become becoming the thing that drives you into fear. I understand why horror movies are one of the top selling genre. It's adrenaline. It's exciting. It's scary. We all somehow have this sense of we like a good scare for whatever reason. In the Christian community, we do this to ourselves all the time. But it's not helpful. It is not helpful. We are actually not fearing who we are supposed to fear, which is God.
Mm,
We don't
mm,
fear God, but now we fear man and we fear circumstances. Whether those circumstances are accidental or intentional, we fear man and we fear circumstances.
mm, mm.
And we don't need to fear either. I
I
mean,
I I
honestly,
hear.
we do to some extent because it happens. I mean,
Mm,
if all of a sudden there's a knock on my door and a bunch of thugs at my door, there's going to be fear, no question.
mm,
But
mm.
at the same time, if I am, constantly imagine that that's going to take place and scare myself up to the point where I will never go and answer the door, well, how ineffective am I? Shame on me.
Well, having known you, for argument's sake, you could say that in Canada, if you had so much fear, then you wouldn't be driving down the road, and a moose wouldn't come and hit you, which I know has happened, or a bear wouldn't suddenly, come on your property, which I know what's happened. And I hear you. That's a very interesting discussion because I think it's that whole thing of maybe urbanization,
Mm,
and then suddenly
hmm.
we're in a rural community. I am, you are. We've got to think about these things in a
Right.
slightly different way. Um, it's a bit like, yeah, I used to go paragliding quite a lot. I stopped because I just thought I'm self-employed. There are, I suppose, there are certain things that we would say, but I hear you. I mean, how many times in scripture does it say, do not fear?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, we see examples in Scripture over and over again of the problem of fearing man
Mm. Oh,
and the problem of
absolutely.
not fearing God. I
Mm,
mean, all that man is creation.
mm,
There is fundamentally, at the end of the day, yes, another man can take my life. I know that. But at the end of the day, that man's life is also gone too. And we all stand before the judge.
mm, mm,
We all stand before the judge.
mm.
Going back quickly to some of the conversations, just I know we went off of a big rabbit trail here, which is
No, no, no,
a
no,
lot of
no.
fun, Mark. A lot of fun. I have to
Yeah,
admit.
yeah.
But just to give your audience a sense of some of the clout of the personalities who were at this event, we had NASA insiders. We had a leading a leading personality in the psychedelic community who works deeply in NASA, engaging in NASA simulation, engaging in the development of technologies for NASA, who talked to us a lot about his psychedelic experiences and how he receives the downloads um,
Wow,
for new development based on the new knowledge he has acquired by contacting the entities.
wow.
I
So what
mean,
I said earlier in
yeah,
regard to what Russ does say is
yeah.
is is right. Carl, just to give you a warning, we're coming up to the last few minutes, but
Okay, no, that's cool. That's
no,
cool.
no, that is there anything else? Is there any other nuggets like that in regard
Oh,
to who was attending the
I
event?
got I got a notebook of notes with
I
full
know.
of nuggets. I
Bless
mean, it's
you, bless
unbelievable.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in terms of coming up to the last few minutes, and yeah, and that's good to know. Um, I would just simply challenge ourselves. I would encourage us. I'm going to use that word very specifically. Not that encouragement in this respect means that I want to see your feelings affirmed. No, no, our feelings come and go. I would rather focus on the centrality of the word encouragement, which is the word courage,
Mm,
and say as Christians we need to regain our courage. We need to regain our courage. You don't have to go to these kinds of events. All you have to do is step outside your door and have conversations with people,
mm.
because it's the same. You're going to end up running into the same worldview. You're going to run into that same reality. Just go to Walmart. Just go to McDonald's. Just go to whatever store there is that you have the equivalent of in the UK and I have the equivalent of in my country, Canada, or in the United States, or wherever you're hearing this. All you have to do is engage with people, and you're going to be running into the same worldview issues. Uh, if you are involved, let's say, though, in certain industries and you have that ability to put your voice in to some of those bigger conversations, you do that. That's what you have to do. And so wherever God has put you, wherever God has planted your feet, and wherever your feet go, that is where your ministry is. And
Amen.
we have to keep that in mind.
Amen. Um, in the last and sort of 30 seconds, Carl, where can people find your book? Where can they find you? Where can they follow your work?
You can find my book on my website, gameofgods.ca. I also ran an online publication for a number of years called Forcing Change. You can go to forcingchange.org and go through the archives. That's all available for free at forcingchange.org. You can order my book on Amazon, of course, and you can find me on Twitter and on Facebook.
Brilliant. Carl, when I sign off, please stay on the other side so I can just quickly catch up and say a goodbye. But Carl, I just want to thank you very much for joining us, and basically giving me an exclusive, as this is the first sort of public discussion before you go off and do a lecture and a few hours at the event that you are about where you've been. I just want to thank you for going there. Thank you for your friendship, my brother. It means a lot. And thank you for the fact that we can have these discussions, and just ask everyone to click subscribe. Please follow Carl's work, get his book. I can highly recommend it. No, I haven't fully finished reading it, but I dip in and out, and that is the key thing, because it is a textbook, and that is why it's important. And I do sense that more and more that going to these events, finding out what's going on, informing. I do want to encourage you to say, as you're finding out, that people are waking up to this. We are having to push those doors open. So thank you again for joining me on the Sutherland Report, and I'm going to play us out. See you next time.